Happy Monday, everyone. John Lorden here with your first episode of Brain Scratch Case Cracked for the year 2019. And before we continue, I want to give a very big thank you once again to Christian Hum for the new intro that you guys saw. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've got some comments that you want to leave for Christian, please leave those in the comment box down below. This is a really interesting case, today's case. This is a case that was covered nationally pretty well. I'd be very surprised if many of you don't know about it, but it's a case that just missed Brain Scratch in terms of coverage. So I wanted to be sure to cover it now that we have a good solid conclusion to it. And once again, thank you to Christy Arnhart. I wanted to say her maiden name. Well, thank you to Christy Arnhart for working so hard on the research and writing for this episode. I like to call today's episode the Tattletale Bug. You might know it as the tragedy of Katrina Smith. On Monday night, October 22nd, 2012, in Machesney Park, Illinois, Todd and Katrina Smith had just returned from an anniversary trip to Washington, D.C., not only celebrating 7 years together, but also the prospect of a new job. Katrina had an interview lined up for the next morning. While Katrina finished the laundry, she used her husband's computer to finalize the details. After confirming her morning meeting, Todd Smith says Katrina headed out to a friend's condo where she was house-sitting. The next morning, the insurance and investment broker sent a text to his wife, "Good luck at your interview. You're gonna be awesome." Katrina didn't respond. After hearing nothing all day, the phone rang. Katrina hadn't shown up for work or her big interview. Nervously, Todd drove to the sheriff's office. Investigators confirmed that Katrina did send her potential new boss an email from her husband's laptop, but they are unable to locate her. On October 23, 2012, the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department officially classified Katrina Smith as a missing person, and a desperate search for her began. Every day after that, Todd could be seen on television, making emotional pleas, begging for her safe return. "I just want her to come home or call or let us know she's safe. Katrina, please," he said. The last text Todd had sent Katrina read, "Sweet dreams. I love you." While Todd appealed to the public, Katrina's family created a Facebook page where they organized volunteer search parties. Almost immediately, Katrina's abandoned Chevrolet Cruze was discovered at an intersection about 2 miles from her home. Investigators on scene believe the car had been wiped clean and toted in for more forensic processing. 2 days after that, searchers made a startling discovery. Her purse was found east of her abandoned car. Bloody paper towels were found in a field outside Ralston Elementary School, and her cell phone was thrown in bushes outside a house near Norman Avenue. Then another stunning discovery is made. Katrina had a secret lover named Guy Gabriel, a married man and one of Katrina's co-workers. A background check also shows that Guy has a violent past. Police records reportedly revealed an arrest for domestic battery involving Guy Gabriel's wife. Text messages retrieved from Katrina's cell phone on the night she disappeared show that Guy Gabriel sent her a barrage of messages, one of which read, "Have you told him you want a divorce? That there's nothing left in you for him? Nothing." Upon investigation, surveillance video showed that Guy Gabriel was actually at work the night of Katrina's disappearance. Even though this effectively ruled out Gabriel as a suspect, it would be the second time that his name was brought up to investigators. 2 weeks before Katrina went missing, an individual drove through her work parking lot in disguise and distributed a flyer. The flyer exposed her boyfriend, Guy Gabriel, and said several very nasty and somewhat graphic things about Katrina. With their leads exhausted, investigators returned to the evidence. Everything they believed to be true began to unravel. Katrina was not house-sitting. Earlier that month, Katrina had moved into her own apartment. As a matter of fact, the story that started this episode, she was already out of the house. That story actually came from Todd. Her cell phone also showed a text message to a friend where Katrina stated that she had told Todd that she wanted a divorce. Prosecutors believe she was killed that very same night. In her recovered purse, investigators found notes regarding appointments with the divorce attorney. Traces of Katrina's blood were found in the trunk of her car, on the steering wheel, and in the driver's seat. Then, 17 days after she was reported missing, on November 9th of 2012, Katrina Smith's body was found in the Rock River near Byron, Illinois. Found by a fisherman in the river, she was so badly decomposed that only dental records could identify her. Her cause of death was determined by forensic scientist Dr. Mark Peters as blunt force trauma, while asphyxiation was the mechanism of death. Peters said that he did not know for sure if she suffered positional asphyxiation, such as suffocating because of body position after being stuffed unconscious into a trunk. With this new evidence in hand, investigators decided to take a fresh look at the case and consider a new suspect, one who had been on TV every day since her disappearance, begging for his wife's safe return. Investigators began to wonder if Todd Smith was really a grieving husband or a killer feeding off the public's attention. Katrina's co-workers confirmed that she thought she was being stalked in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, and investigators had found a Louisville Slugger aluminum baseball bat at the Smith house that had traces of Katrina's blood on it. A close family friend named Drew Ander said Smith became visibly upset when he realized investigators had taken the baseball bat from his garage. Quote, he said, "My fingerprints are all over the bat." With a second search warrant for Smith's computer and updated tracking software, investigators found 3 wiped folders of interest on Smith's laptop. One is entitled KS10412. This coincided with the date Katrina allegedly had with Gabriel for drinks. The second folder contained the flyer that was distributed at Katrina's workplace. But the third folder grabbed the attention of Detective Juanez. It was entitled Super Track Stick. A super track stick is a device that is used to track movement of a person or a vehicle, said Juanez. The satellite signal will track every movement by capturing GPS coordinates. He was tracking his wife for some time. Katrina was right. She was being stalked, but not just in the weeks before her disappearance. Her husband had been tracking her every move for 3 years. After passing this new information on to the forensic team processing her car, they checked under Katrina's vehicle. They didn't find a GPS tracker, but they did find something else. Quote, "A wire was located underneath Katrina's vehicle, so we knew that something had been fixed to that vehicle," said Juanez. Even armed with all this evidence, investigators were still looking for the piece that would ultimately crack this case, and they would find it. On the night that Katrina disappeared, Smith's GPS device appeared to move from Katrina's vehicle to a person's body, and the coordinates show this mystery man was on the move. The tracking device shows hundreds of pings, which is consistent from somebody walking, somebody leaving the vehicle, removing the tracking device from her vehicle, and then walking back to Todd Smith's residence, said Juanez. Investigators then reviewed home surveillance video recovered from one of Smith's neighbors. They compared the GPS movements to the video. It was an exact frame-for-frame match. The pings show us he's walking on the sidewalk. It shows when he's walking on the fields as he's crossing over through fields, says Juanez. The video shows Smith on his way home after he killed his wife. He took it off the car, and at that time we believe he either thought he was turning it off and he turned it on instead, and that's when it started tracking him, said Juanez. But that wasn't the biggest mistake Smith made that night. His biggest mistake was plugging the tracking device back into his laptop. The laptop then downloaded all the data the device had collected, including Smith's walk home. Investigators believe Katrina went over to do laundry and ask Smith for a divorce. With the knowledge he'd gained from the tracking device, he knew Katrina was having an affair, and in a rage, he ended her life. He then dumped her body in the Rock River, washed her car, and called police to say that she had gone missing. After killing her to draw suspicion away from himself, Smith sent that final text message saying, "Sweet dreams, I love you." Katrina had realized that she had to end the marriage. Smith was hardly the money man he claimed to be. Him and his business partners are accused of bilking clients out of nearly $1 million. In addition, he had been indicted on 7 counts of mail fraud and 10 counts of wire fraud in connection with the alleged charges to which he had pleaded not guilty. In reality, Katrina actually supported Smith and his 3 daughters. But as it turns out, Smith was keeping some even greater secrets of his own. Katrina didn't even know her husband's real name. Todd Smith isn't even Todd Smith. His real name is Todd Rapridger. Rapridger changed his name to Todd Smith after being convicted of arson as a teenager. He had previously been arrested when he was 17 for trying to burn his family's house down while his family members were still inside of it. Rapridger was sentenced to 30 months probation. Katrina never knew about any of this, according to her family. Smith was found guilty on first-degree murder and related charges in what the jury deemed as a brutal and heinous murder. He will likely spend the rest of his life in prison after being sentenced to 59 years. Smith claimed his innocence until the very last day of court. "I'm sorry for failing in my role as husband and protector," he said. Judge Fernando Engelsma had harsh words for Smith, calling the crime unfathomable and his efforts in searching for his missing wife a slap in the face to her family and to the community. The defendant wrote the epitaph for Katrina, prosecutors said in their closing arguments. "You are my wife, you will be my wife, and you will die my wife." Katrina's mom says she can't forgive Smith and left him with this quote to remember while he's in prison. "Death leaves a heartache no one can heal, but love leaves memories that not even you can steal." Vicky Navilik, Katrina Smith's sister, said, "We're going to go see Katrina tomorrow at the grave, and we're going to tell her we finally have justice. We can breathe now." Case cracked. Yeah, so if you guys are wondering in terms of the details with the baseball bat, it does seem like she was struck over 20 times. Approximately 7 of those blows were to her head. But as we noted in this story, that's not ultimately what killed her. It probably knocked her unconscious, but then when he put her possibly in the back of the vehicle, the way that he put her in there, it seems like it choked off her airflow and that she basically choked off that. So just a terrible, tragic story. And there's something about it that feels unique in terms of, on Case Cracked, we don't get a whole lot of stories where someone makes a really drastic slip up that ultimately leads to them coming down. And here, I mean, it's just, he was smart enough to remove the device from her car, but then why did he synchronize it? I mean, he removed the device after he had already ended her life. He knew that there wasn't going to be any more of this affair or anything like that going on. Was he just curious about the last couple days and had to synchronize it again to see that? I can't believe it. I don't know if the actual device was ever found, but it doesn't matter because the data was ultimately found on his laptop. And once they had that and lined it up with that neighbor's footage, it was pretty easy to determine that GPS was in his pocket. And previously it was on her vehicle, where her vehicle was ditched after she was murdered. So just a really gruesome case. It always breaks my heart when you hear about these cases where someone that you're supposed to trust, a spouse, winds up being the culprit and going to these lengths. What kind of relationship could that have been with him, tracking her for 3 years? I mean, just obviously there was already severe trust issues, and with all of his backstory and her possibly not knowing about that, trust issues in the other direction. I guess that kind of makes sense in terms of helping to understand his character, why he was so untrusting, because he's a guy that was largely not trustworthy himself. So of course that's how he's going to see the world. But it always breaks my heart to hear that, people that you take a vow with, that you're going to make each other's life better and be there for each other, go down this road. So I'm thankful that he's serving time. I'm thankful that her family, I don't want to say can move forward, because I don't think you really move forward from something like this, but I'm thankful that they have justice, that they know the answers, and that they can honor Katrina's life from here forward. Thank you so much for joining me here on Case Cracked, everyone. Before we end today's episode, I want to thank several new patrons, starting with Curious Cat. What a great name. Also, Mary Fantaski. Thank you, Mary. Amanda Brown. Thank you so much for the support. Maxine Verbruggen. Thank you, Maxine. And finally, Susan Gable. Thank each and every one of you for keeping me here doing what I love doing. I can't do it without your support. So thank you so, so much. Take care, everyone. We'll see you back here on Wednesday with a brand new case on Searchlight.